but this committee has heard a lot on this issue. I want to, I guess, go back a little bit before a world where fracking was, kind of high on our radar screen, specifically to talk about the threats the Delaware River has faced over the last decade plus. In 2004, the Delaware saw a 260,000 gallon oil spill from the tanker Athos in the lower Delaware, I believe right before Thanksgiving. In the late summer of 2005, you saw a tremendous, I don't even really want to call it a spill, but tremendous industrial accident on the upper Delaware from Martins Creek coal facility. That facility discharged 100 million gallons of coal ash into the Delaware. And then finally, in 2006, we had a very active debate, and sadly, it was a very active debate, although very not active here in New Jersey, where there was unified opposition to a proposal by the Army to bring VX gas from Indiana and to discharge and supposedly treat it into the Delaware. And I'm thankful that proposal got stopped. And the reason I mention all of those items is, one, to reference the threat that the Delaware faces from multiple formats, and then also to directly say that for all of those contaminants, oil, VX gas, coal ash, I don't believe we would be in a position where we're trying to regulate them. We would say we want to ban them, just like we did VX gas. Obviously, there's no permitting process for discharging crude oil into the Delaware, or for that matter, coal ash. And the EPA finally is taking action on this. And the reason I bring that up is because if we look at the scientific research, and I want to cite this example because the legislation does cite this threat, but not to the extent that I think it needs to, which is that in the Allegheny County drinking watershed outside of Pittsburgh, a 2013 study from Duke University referenced the level of radiums found in the riverbeds. It was 200 times higher than EPA standards. Obviously, and that's not an isolated case, but that's probably the best example of the direct impact of fracking waste on our waterways and our potential drinking water supply. And quite frankly, this legislation is talking about trying to regulate something that we should ban. I want to reference some of the arguments that were brought up by the governor and the governor's council in his attempts to discredit this ban legislation, and ultimately in his shallow attempts to show there's a legal reason to veto this legislation. Now, I'm no lawyer. However, if you look at the Dormant Commerce Clause, you'll see there's a very distinct definition between the example of Philadelphia versus New Jersey, which is a direct ban on garbage, which there are similarities in the case, but the biggest one is that legislation was only referencing out-of-states. This legislation obviously references fracking waste from everywhere. And that's a misreading of the Dormant Commerce Clause by the Governor's Council, and one where in 2013, where allies of ours, including attorneys from the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, as well as from NRDC, provided clear legal basis on why this did not violate the Commerce Clause. And so, the Governor's opposition to the frack waste ban based on legal reasons is flimsy, to say the least. Finally, kind of some of the points that we've heard before in this committee and the broader issue of we don't know what's actually coming into New Jersey. And I just want to reiterate, the only reason we know that fracking waste has come into New Jersey is because the Pennsylvania DEP, not only, they don't inform us, but they at least make the information publicly available because of the advocacy of Delaware Riverkeeper Network. We've been able to figure out when waste is coming into New Jersey. Quite frankly, DEP should be letting the public know if and when more fracking waste comes into the state. That being said, there's the idea of kind of waiting because the governor opposes a ban. I don't think it makes sense at this point. The era of the Christie administration is not over yet, but it is not going to last continually. And the rationale to have an outright ban is incredibly strong because we, quite frankly, have more drinking water quality issues in the state than just fracking waste. This committee is quite familiar with the work or the lack of work from the Drinking Water Quality Institute, a DEP body put on ice, and in reference to kind of the problems in South Jersey I think they're too numerable to mention in Paulsboro and in West Deptford from Solvay, and for PFNA, which the Drinking Water Quality Institute is looking at, and for that matter for the discovery of TCP in the drinking water wells of Morristown. Those are issues that this committee and, quite frankly, DEP needs to be taking action on. We should not be, trying to cut the baby in half and trying to figure out what's safe in fracking waste and what's not. Because scientific research has shown more than 500 known carcinogens are in fracking waste, as well as radioactive contaminants. We should deal with our problems at home and not take waste from any party. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Doug.